All right, if I could have everybody's attention. For the sake of starting on time and more importantly trying to get out of here on time tonight, we're going to get going. That's my keys, get out of here by 8:15. So I'd like to thank you all first for coming tonight to this debate co-organized by the Ainslie Wood Westdale Community Association, the Strathcona Community Council, and the Kirkendall Neighbourhood Association. I'm Dr. Jay Parlar. I'm the president of the Ainslie Wood Westdale Community Association, the AWWCA, and I am going to be your moderator this evening. Our goal tonight is to provide our lovely candidates with a chance to explain their views on a number of issues. All the questions asked tonight came from all of you. We've had questions submitted online for a short while, and there's also been an opportunity, mentioned multiple times tonight, to submit questions into the box at the back. We obviously can't ask every question because we have 2 hours, lots of candidates. It's not a lot of time. But the final questions that will be used were chosen and selected together and agreed upon by representatives of all three associations. Every question was agreed to by every association. The format for the evening is as follows. To start the night, each of the candidates is going to be given 2 minutes for an introduction. After the introductions, we'll begin with the questions. The first question of the night, for the first question of the night, every candidate will have 60 seconds to answer. When all candidates have completed their initial 60-second answers, there will be a 30-second follow-up phase. All the remaining questions of the night, we'll give the candidates 60 seconds, but no follow-up. The final question of the night will return to the original format of 60 seconds with a 30-second follow-up. We're hoping this gives everybody a chance to talk. We're going to get a couple good questions out. Again, tight time, lots of candidates. After the final question is complete, each candidate will be given 1 minute for a closing statement. And after the debate is over, within the next couple of days, we're going to send all the questions to all of the candidates so they have the option to answer them in more detail on their websites should they choose to do so. So given the format of the evening, we have only selected questions that pertain to all of the candidates. We did receive questions that were targeted to an individual candidate or 2 candidates or 3 candidates. We rejected all of those simply for time reasons. And we've tried to balance the format of the evening to accommodate the large number of candidates in Ward 1 as well as the diverse communities that exist within Ward 1. And finally, and I think the candidates are all happy about this part, I will not accept any candidate speaking out of turn. I reserve the right to ban a candidate from their next answering opportunity should they interrupt or speak over anybody else. Our goal this evening is to learn the candidates' minds and not to bear witness to their interruption and disruption skills. There seems to be agreement in the audience as well. As I've previously reminded all 6 candidates, I have 3 little kids at home, and putting a quick stop to squabbles is part of my daily routine. I'd appreciate not to have to use my dad voice with candidates for City Council. All right. So with that, we will get started. As I said, each candidate is going to be given an opportunity, 2 minutes to introduce themselves. We're going to start at the far end with Tony, work our way down. At the end of the night for the closing, we'll start at this end with Ira, work our way over there. All right, so just give me 1 moment, Tony.
Hello, I'm Tony Greco. Thank you for being here tonight. I'm a friend and a neighbor who has served Ward 1 for over 30 years. I'm the founder of the Lock Street Business Association and the BIA. I had the privilege of overseeing the revival of a favorite Hamilton neighborhood, Lock Street South. This rejuvenation is a great Hamilton success story, for which I received the Hamilton Vision 2020 Award. Hamilton needs jobs. As a director of Workforce Hamilton, a previous member of the Federal Job Creation Committee, I work tirelessly to create new job opportunities. My passion for a green Hamilton has been demonstrated by my involvement on the Kirkendall Neighborhood Task Force and the Hamilton Neighborhood Improvement Program. I worked hard to develop a green space in the community, such as Jackson Park, AAA Park, and K. Drage Park. I'm part of a countless neighborhood review and enhancement committees in Ward 1, and demonstrated my love for the ward through my service, not just my words. I have the knowledge and understanding of what is required to ensure Ward 1 continues to flourish. My passion and commitment to the community has earned me a number of honors. Among them, the Tourism Hamilton Award of Excellence, the Provincial Award of Appreciation for Community Development and Social Inclusion, and the Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal. I'm also very touched to have been inducted into Hamilton Gallery Distinction just last week. Thank you. If you're elected, I will work hard for you.
Thank you. My name is Jason Allen, and I'm running for City Council for Ward 1 because I'm passionate about municipal politics. I believe it's the place where you can do the most good and have the most positive effect on people, and it's the highest level of office to which I'd ever aspire. In the last 5 years, I've been working at Metrolinx, and despite working full-time and commuting a great distance, I volunteered thousands of hours in my neighborhood through 2 neighborhood associations, the 47th Scout Group, the Participatory Budget Advisory Committee, as well as the Down Syndrome Association of Hamilton, demonstrating my commitment and learning the issues in the ward. At my time at Go Transit, I've also been committed to ensuring people move around the GTHA more easily and more safely, and I share that commitment to moving people around Ward 1, whether in a car, on a bike, on foot, on a bus, or, and I intend to fight for this, by LRT. We need to give people genuine choices about how they move around their neighborhood. Secondly, we're on the cusp of a dramatic shift in our ward in terms of how and where we live, with new rental and condominium proposals occurring almost monthly. And yet hearing at the same time seniors in the neighborhood who have nowhere to move to when they wish to downsize from their single-family home. We need to ensure that development in the ward happens in a way that respects the wishes and the needs of the neighborhoods and reflects the character of the neighborhoods they're in. Finally, we have a crisis of a toxic culture at City Hall, where many of our best employees are headed for the door. I would use my experience in cultural change at Metrolinx to help shift the culture at City Hall to one of customer service and positivity. I have a concrete and actionable plan to do all of these things, which you can see at my website at jasonallen.ca. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. My name is Aidan Johnson. I grew up in Westdale and Ainslie Wood, and these days I live off of Locke Street with my partner, Stefan. I am a staff lawyer here in Hamilton for Legal Aid Ontario. Legal Aid is the organization that provides access to justice for low-income people. I have the privilege of working with some of our city's most marginalized individuals and most marginalized families on a daily basis in my job. And when I say it's a privilege, there is no truer word I could possibly use. In this debate, I'm going to be describing what I want to bring to City Council, the values that I'm going to be fighting for. The reason that I feel strong and confident in my ability to deliver on green economics for our neighborhood, to deliver on appropriate, full recreation opportunities for people of all ages, including senior citizens. The reason I feel able to bring Hamilton to the next level of greatness as a city has to do with the leadership skills and the values that I learned here in West Hamilton from my teachers, from my family, from my neighbors, from my friends. I'd like to put a particular question to bed. In this race, there has been a question posed. Can a 34-year-old or a 35-year-old have the experience, have the guts, have the leadership experience to bring Hamilton to the next level of greatness? My answer to that question is yes. Where do I get that answer from? From our history. Some of our greatest Ward 1 councillors, people like Terry Cook and Bob Morrow, were elected Ward 1 councillor in their 20s, never mind their 30s. Andrea Horvath was elected to our city council at the age of 35. I'm 34 right now. I'll be turning 35 the day before we go to the polls on October the 27th. I'm so grateful that you're here.
Got to wrap it up, Aidan, okay?
And I'll talk to you more in a couple minutes. Thank you.
Well, I guess the question then is someone in their 50s can do the same thing, I suppose.
Absolutely.
So I want to thank all of you for being here. It really is an exciting evening. It's a great turnout. And you know, many people, as we all know, are deeply cynical about politics, and there's really no wonder why. But politics are important. It matters who serves in public life. It matters who you elect. It matters what they stand for. And it matters if we want to continue to build a just and fair community. We've mentioned it before, my other opponents have mentioned it many times. Hamilton is on the verge of great things, and it's on the verge of change. There's an optimism, there's a confidence in the air that many of us in this room haven't felt for years. And the reason that I'm running is I believe that I have the exact combination of skills and leadership that Hamilton, Ward 1, needed this time. I have a really unique combination of skills both in community development, financial management, and business. And I think those will really help me in my role as councillor, particularly at this time. I've worked in this community my entire career. I've worked for great organizations like the Social Planning and Research Council and the United Way, and I'm currently the Director of Corporate Social Responsibility for First Ontario Credit Union. It's a mouthful. I also have deep roots in this ward. I raised my kids here. My grandkids are growing up in this very same neighborhood. I'm a homeowner, I'm a neighbor, and I also am a dedicated community volunteer. I think that what's important at this time in Ward 1 is that you elect a councillor that has the skills and leadership to take us to the next level. But all of these things, I'm mostly a proud Hamiltonian. I'm proud that Hamilton is on the verge of great things, and I hope that you will consider me as your next councillor. I think I do have the skills, the leadership that matters to take us to the next level. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Good evening. My name's Brian Lewis. What a fantastic time it is to be a Hamiltonian, and how important of a ward is Ward 1. It's such a privilege to sit up here with such good people and great minds. You're privileged to have such a hard choice. I hope you have a hard choice. And the great ideas that are going to come out tonight from these people and from myself, I think, are just a testament to the type of leadership that's expected from a Ward 1 councillor. As others have alluded to, Ward 1, it's very important. The city looks, I believe the city looks to us for a certain type of leadership to represent our community and the diverse nature of the individual villages within Ward 1. It's also to look at the broad picture of Hamilton as a whole. I believe in economic development, but I also believe in community relations. My personal background, I grew up here, I live here, I've worked here, I volunteer here. My family is here and always has been here. I intend to bring my leadership skills, intend to bring my passion for our community, and I intend to use the lessons I've learned in business and in community involvement that I've gained throughout my 46 years, seeing as everybody's throwing out their ages. Oh, wait, sorry, 47, it was my birthday last week. Again, my name's Brian Lewis. I'm your one vote for Ward 1, and I encourage you to ask tough questions tonight so that these people and myself can be challenged. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you all for coming. It's really shocking to look around the room and see so many faces that I recognize. It's just, I really appreciate you coming out and taking the time. It's a real testament to our community. And in speaking about community, it's something that I take a great deal of pride in. I've been very active and involved with this specific community for almost a decade. I believe that being a councillor is about personal commitment. It's what we've seen in the past, and I think what most people expect for the future. In talking about personal commitment, when I started this campaign, I felt it was very important for me to have a personal relationship, not just with the ward, not just with the community, but with the streets and the homes of Ward 1. And over the past several months, I'm pleased and proud to say that I have been to over 11,000 doors in this community. I have visited every street in this ward personally, not my friends, not my campaign team, me personally. I walked up and down every street, and I think that's a testament to what I bring to this community. You know, we live in a time of consequences where everything we do, every action will have a reaction, not just on the ward and the communities, but on each and every one of us. Whether you're a business owner, or you're a permanent resident, or you're a landlord, or you're a student, every action that this council takes in the future has consequences. Community is determined by how we rise to master each moment. And it's extremely important that together we rise and we grab the moments that we have. And together, I believe, if we work together, we can achieve greatness. We will work hard and we will do what is great. And I look forward to your support on October 27. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. We're actually 2 minutes ahead of schedule, so I like you all already. I'll mention, I don't remember if I mentioned it at the beginning, the first question of the night, all the candidates received that. I think 1 a.m. last night I sent it out. They all received that. Every other question, they have no advance warning. None of them have seen them. None of them have any notion of what's going to be asked. The order of answering has also been randomized. I've got the list here in terms of which order candidates will go in. I guarantee that for the first 6 questions, there will be a different candidate answering first each time. And for no 2 sequential questions do we have the same candidate answering first. So with that, our first question of the night, and again, they all received beforehand. Brian McHattie has said that if he is elected mayor, he will ask each newly elected councillor one-on-one what are the councillors' 5 priorities for their ward. He will then try to work with all the councillors to achieve their priorities. If elected as councillor, what would you tell him are your 5 priorities for Ward 1? We're going to begin with Tony, and again, he's going to have 60 seconds. We'll go through the list. Everyone gets 60 seconds. We'll do a follow-up round of 30 seconds each. So with that, after you.
If I'm elected as a new councillor, I would ask Brian to address my following 5 priorities for Ward 1. High taxation rates. Our tax rates in Ward 1 are the highest in the city. Job creation, improvement of infrastructures, now rather than later. The creation of safe streets for traffic, bicycles, and pedestrians alike. And the promotion of a green Hamilton with park and recreation playgrounds accessible to children with special needs. That's what I would ask him.
Thank you. All right, next is Sandy.
Where LRT will be going, so I won't address that at this time, but in no particular order, I will give you my priorities that aren't entirely mine, but they come from listening to residents over the last months and the work that I've been doing in the community. And so, quickly, student housing and rental housing. Absolutely, this is a huge issue for this neighborhood, and it needs to be addressed. It's really the devastation of the deterioration of our communities in this neighborhood needs to be addressed right now. Growth and development, you've heard it before. We are going to see growth. We need to make sure that it's balanced with the existing neighbors and with our natural environment. Prince Philip School, I will fight to ensure that that school continues to remain in community hands. Aging infrastructure, we have sewers that are flooding, we have potholes, we have sinkholes, we spend our tax dollars, we need to make sure we're getting a good value for that. And finally, economic development. I'd like to put the word community back in economic development. We need to focus on youth unemployment, and living wage, good jobs in this community so we can grow a local, resilient economy for Hamilton and for years to come.
Okay, Jason, you're up next.
Thank you. So my 5 priorities, again in no particular order, the one that I'm hearing the most about when I'm door knocking is a neighborhood-specific rental housing bylaw for Ainslie Wood and Westdale that I would model loosely on the Oshawa model. I've been proposing that for some time now. Second thing I would like to see on a more citywide basis is an HSR commission that was independent from City Council. I think transit planning is a bit of a disaster in this city, and removing politics from those decision-making would be a big thing. I would also like to ensure that development in the neighborhood is done right, not only the new developments proposed at 220 Dundurn and on Locke Street, but as well as those proposed in Ainslie Wood along Main Street. I would also work to improve communication between the council office and between residents in the ward, including things like surveys and more frequent communication. And finally, I would propose a 311 service for the City of Hamilton. We're the largest municipality in Southern Ontario that doesn't have one, and it would be a way to get a single point of contact answer for any question you were looking for from your city. Thank you.
Ira, after you.
In thinking about this, and again, in no specific order, although I'll tell you, the first thing I'm going to work on is making sure that we get a rental housing license bylaw. I've spoken to the city managers. This is an absolute must, not just for this community, but for the ward. But I want to focus on the Ainslie Wood area. That seems to be the most, where it's the biggest issue. We need to work with developers. We need to work with the university. They want to have a presence downtown. I think that's absolutely a must. They are a primary stakeholder, not only in this ward, but in the city. And we need to work with them. We need to make sure that there's no more enrollment on this campus, but everything moving downtown. We need to work to make sure we protect our green spaces. We need to work on making sure that our community has great walking space, and I want to work towards walkability and active transportation. And finally, I think it's important that we work together to try and bring back that sense of community that so many of us have lost. So those are my 5 points.
Aidan, after you.
In no particular order, building a green economy. We need to be building green technology jobs in Hamilton and addressing the key challenge of creating a sustainable economy, a thriving economy that gives us jobs and a tax base that also helps us do justice by the natural environment. It's a huge challenge, but creating a green economy, protecting the green belt in Flamborough is part of that. Raising conservation standards at Coots is certainly part of that. These are some of the environmental initiatives that we need to be championing as a city. 2, safe and complete streets. We need streets that are accessible and safe for all modes of transportation, including public transportation. Bicycle, pedestrian, car, and world-class public transit for Hamilton in whatever form. 3rd, an all-ages recreation center for West Hamilton at the Prince Philip School site. Thank you very much. The municipality has to be the one that acquires that site. We need an all-ages rec center there with a very particular focus on programming for our seniors.
I'm going to cut you off there, Aidan.
Poverty and the downtown economy. Better bylaws.
There, Aidan.
Poverty and bylaws.
Brian, after you.
Thank you. Areas of focus for me would be economic development, business retention, working with business owners in the community that exists now and building business for the future. Secondly, a communication strategy, a strong communication strategy amongst the various associations, residents to your councillor, and amongst the various councillors themselves. Communication strategy amongst businesses and associations as well. Healthy lifestyles, promoting recreation, health, and fitness, mental health and physical health. A stronger and more vibrant and progressive relationship with McMaster University to solve all of the issues that are affected by that relationship and to be able to grow them and expand on them. And finally, obviously, transit and mobility, working for a cost-effective, complete street, positive movement for our transportation issues.
Thank you. And now we will have a 30-second follow-up in the same order. So Tony, you are up first.
Yes. I'd like to follow up on job creation. Hamilton needs jobs. We have the highest per capita poverty rate in the province. We need to attract more business in Hamilton, so to lower the lower residential taxes. So it will be a better place to live for the people in Hamilton now. It's high taxes really killing most of the people in Hamilton now. Thank you.
Sandy, after you.
Well, I'd like to expand a little bit on my notion of community economic development. In my role in Hamilton, I absolutely have seen the absolute ability to invest in our community in local resilient economy. I had the opportunity of developing a micro-lending program that supported local entrepreneurs, and it has shown great benefit. And I think the City of Hamilton, if we added the focus, the double bottom line focus of investing in our economy, in our local economy, with an impact investment strategy, with the millions of dollars that the city has invested, we could see great things. We could build a local resilient economy, both that would achieve environmental goals that we seek,
right, thank
and
you,
also
Sandy.
social goals as well.
Thank you. Jason, after you.
Thank you. A part of my vision for moving around the ward, not only by transit, but also with a network of bicycle lanes, physically separated bicycle lanes that would connect the east end of the ward to the west end of the ward as well. I agree with many candidates here that we need a comprehensive transportation strategy across the ward. We need to ensure people can walk, cycle, and use transit as easily as they can use a car today, and we need to balance the convenience and safety of all those options.
Ira, after you.
To further expand on what I was saying as far as our points, I see an economic development along the Emerson corridor similar to Locke Street. I think after this weekend, if you live in the area, most of us have experienced that we still seem to have a little bit of an issue with student behavior. We need to work closely with the police and bylaws to make sure that we're doing a better job. We've done a good job, but there's room for improvement. And I think that we should get a skateboard park in Alexander Park, and I would definitely work towards that. Thank you.
Thank you. Aidan, after you.
Thank you very much. We all know that there are very serious problems with bylaw non-enforcement in Westdale and Ainslie Wood, as well as throughout the ward. We have serious hygiene problems that create unsafe environments for students. We have terrible noise pollution problems and hygiene problems created by bad student houses and some bad landlords that afflict terrible misery on non-student neighbors. We need better bylaw enforcement to address that stuff. I got my career start in corporate law at the great national law firm Borden Ladner Gervais.
All right, and Aidan, I'll cut you off there. No, Aidan, please. Brian, after you.
I'd like to expand on my comment or my issue with communications. One of the main thing, or one of the consistent messages that seems to come across from my visits to the doors, and I haven't been to everybody's door yet. It's a lot of streets, but I will be before the end of the month. But a communication strategy. Every conversation has a question mark, and people aren't aware of so much of what goes on within the city and the actions taken by the city, and it needs to be improved.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to the end of the first round. As I said, the question order has been randomized. For this next round, the order will be Ira, Brian, Jason, Aidan, Sandy, and Tony. I will, of course, tell them beforehand so they don't have to memorize that. Our question now: some neighborhoods in Ward 1 have an abundance of municipal services, while others, such as Ainslie Wood, have very little. The city purchase of the Prince Philip School site for a community center now seems to be at risk. What would you do to provide a community hub for Ainslie Wood, or otherwise rectify the imbalance in services? Again, you will each have 1 minute, no follow-up. Ira, you are first to go.
Thank you. So there's no question in speaking to people and being, you know, I've lived here all my life, so I know for a fact that the Ainslie Wood community is just been left by the wayside. They have absolutely no community resources. The possibility of the Prince Philip site now being purchased by another bidder is I see as an opportunity for the city to sit down with whoever that is and perhaps have a recreational element in that facility. There is a plan in place to revitalize Daywood School. I think that's a good idea as well, even though it's not in Ainslie Wood. But I think that we do need to focus on recreation and community availability for the people of Ainslie Wood, and I would certainly advocate strongly for that, and I would support the community in any way I possibly could as your councillor. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian, after you.
I think it's like anything when you're planning something, is building a strong strategy and implementing those changes. Obviously, as others have noticed, Ainslie Wood is in need of so many improvements in its services. And I think you have to take a leadership approach to it, a strategic approach, and address it at a high level at the city as well, whether it's in budgeting or in personnel.
Thank you. Jason, after you.
Thank you. I'm concerned that the Prince Philip purchase is going to go to someone other than the city. So I've been thinking a lot about backup plans. And one model that's been, I think, is becoming very successful, pardon me, in Strathcona is that use of a church, an underused church adjacent to near Victoria Park. I think there's opportunities to partner with other buildings like that in Ainslie Wood to try and leverage some currently underused spaces to create a community hub out of that in the instance that we're not able to, the city's not able to purchase the facility.
All right, thank you. Aidan, after you.
I'm not ready to go to Plan B yet. I'm sticking with Plan A, which is municipal purchase of the Prince Philip site. I think it's time for Hamilton to have a lawyer on council again. We haven't had a lawyer on council since the 1980s. Many of the challenges we face are fundamentally legal in nature and are very complicated. And it would be a terrible honor for me to bring my legal skills to bear on untangling thorny questions, such as how can our municipality angle properly and effectively to get the property that we need at the Prince Philip site. Let us be effective lobbyists. Let us care about the seniors and the marginalized families in this neighborhood that need proper health and recreation programming. Thank you.
Sandy, after you.
So I sit on the committee that is fighting to save Prince Philip School, and what I see there is you do not need to be a lawyer to advocate and fight for what's right in your community. Those residents have done a phenomenal job of advocating for what is just fair and what is just for that community. Thanks, Aidan. And it's not just the school that they don't have services, it's all kinds of services. They don't have a library, they don't have adequate bus service. You know, Ainslie Wood and Westdale are historical communities. It seems to me Westdale was the first planned community in all of Canada. We fight hard to preserve buildings, heritage buildings, which I think is fair, but we also need to fight hard to preserve these neighborhoods. And services are just one piece of that. Engaging the communities, making sure that our residents are able to make their voices heard is a very, very important thing, and I will continue to fight for that, whether I'm elected or not. Thank you.
And Tony, after you.
Yes. The city should explore to buy more property from the Board of Education. There's a lot of empty buildings at the moment. Most of the schools are closing in some areas, and use them for seniors or for facilitate some of
Tony,
the...
I'm going to pause you just for a second. Can you bring the microphone closer?
Oh, close. Okay, I'm sorry. You can't hear. Okay.
Closer.
Okay. You can't hear me? Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay.
All right. Time starts again now.
Okay, we start again. Okay, the city should explore to buy more property from the Board of Education and make use for seniors facilities and a special use for other service that some of the community don't have, unfortunately. And so the city should be getting involved more in that aspect of it, buy more property and make use of it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, our next question. As our city continues to grow, how would you deal with issues of infill development in our neighborhoods? For example, the Durham proposed development, the 95 to 103 Lock Street development, and the proposed student housing on Leland. Our order for this is going to be Sandy, Brian, Ira, Jason, Tony, and Aidan. Sandy, after you.
Mentioned, and all of the candidates have mentioned, we're going to see a lot of development in this neighborhood, and we need to get it right. We need to get the balance right. We have in the past here in Hamilton allowed developers to come into our neighborhood because we weren't as desirable as we were in the past, but that is no longer. We have every right to advocate for the kind of community that we want to build in this community. And so it's also quite possible to see development that addresses the double bottom line. You can have development that returns a reasonable rate of return for investors, but you can also ensure that you have economic, environmental impact as well. There are good developers in this community. We need to support those good developers, and then we also need to look at bylaws and variances that have teeth. And we need, again, to engage communities and community residents to stand up for the kind of community that they want for the future.
Brian, after you.
On one point, I'll be very similar to that. And the engagement of the community is vital, and working with the developers is vital, maximizing the value of that land, as well as working with the developers, working with the City of Hamilton to cut the red tape so that they can move their processes faster as well. If the new development creates jobs, it's something that's vital for our community. More jobs creates a healthier lifestyle and a healthier community.
Ira, after you.
So we have 3 proposed developments in Kirkendall, and we have 7 proposed developments in the Ainsley Wood Westdale community. There's no question that development is coming, and it's a key to our future. As treasurer of the Town and Gown Association of Ontario, I have a unique perspective. I've had the opportunity to meet and talk to many of the developers. Most are coming from the Waterloo region, and I think what they propose is great, and I think there's value in it, but we have to make we have to be very, very careful where these developments take place. So in working with the Community Association, we're devising a plan to work with developers, and I advocate strongly for that. But we definitely need to have more development in the area. We have to think about versatility, commercial retail, and the zoning that goes along with it, and making sure that we have the bylaws, the right bylaws in place to deal with these developments. Thank you.
Jason, after you.
Thank you. So I've been sitting on the Development Review Committee of the Kirkendall Neighbourhood Association for the last little over a year and a half. And in that time, I've understood that the process and part of the challenge with developments going wrong in the neighbourhood is not the lack of community involvement. It's the fact that once the initial community involvement is over, largely the decisions about that building are made by people who are not accountable to the public. What I would do as councillor is ensure that neighbourhood input and public input occurred at every step of the process to ensure that the building promised is the building that gets built. I've been very active on the issues around 220 Dundurn and supporting the neighbours on Chatham around that, and would continue to be a strong advocate for neighbourhoods participating throughout the entire process, not just the initial site plan approval, but through every step of the process right through the building permit, so that it's the building that's promised, like I said, is the building that's delivered. Thank you.
Tony, after you.
As the chair of Lock Street BIA, we have some of these problems occurred to new investors to come in and they want to build this, they want to build that, but I think the best way is to really look after and make sure that, that it's in the right place, it fits the neighborhood, and make sure that we have committees that, I think the Kirkendall committee is doing a good job on that, and that we protect our neighborhood and not to really become very, very traffic because of the cars and extra people living there and the building heights and where they're built. And so I think we've got to be very careful and keep an eye on things.
Finally, Aidan.
Thank you. Student housing is a major issue in this ward. I think that one of the most effective things we can do to address all of the problems that attach to our multifaceted crisis in student housing in Ward 1 is to work as a city with McMaster to do a lot more to put student residences downtown in the core of the city. We need to accompany that move of student residences from Westdale into the core with a move of a lot more McMaster infrastructure into the core. Classroom teaching, other McMaster facilities. This would be extremely good for the downtown economy. It would take pressure off of Westdale, and in my opinion, I love Westdale, but I think there's a lot more for people in their early 20s and late teens in terms of culture and recreation and fun opportunities in the downtown. I describe it as a win-win-win. In the core, we need to be building up. We need to be building vertically. We need to be building sustainably and providing adequate housing for seniors and low-income people, while at the same time welcoming with open arms rich people from Toronto
All right,
who want to come.
thank you, Aidan. Just briefly, are there any of the candidates that you're having a hard time hearing? Ira? All right. If you bring the mic closer when you speak. Jason as well? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, try not to hit the tables. The mics are very sensitive. Okay, for our next question, the order is going to be Brian, Aidan, Tony, Sandy, Jason, and Ira. And this is your question. What will you do to stop absentee landlords from downgrading the quality of our residential community? What plans, if any, would you have to reintroduce a rental housing bylaw? Brian, after you.
Yep, thank you. It's such a huge issue, and I think it needs a multi-pronged approach. There's the bylaw enforcement, there's the new bylaw engagement, but it's also working with businesses and working with McMaster University at a high level. It's up to senior city staff, it's up to senior management and senior executives at McMaster, and it's up to working with them to develop a program where they understand how serious of an issue this is. So if it's developing downtown, if it's developing in Ward 1, if it's engaging the student, if it's engaging the community as well as the local businesses. So the plan would entail a multi-pronged approach and potentially an incentive program for purchasing houses for students so that they have a sense of ownership as they grow in Hamilton and an opportunity to stay in Hamilton and raise their families in the community as well.
Aidan, after you.
This is an issue very close to my heart. I grew up on Whitten Road here in Westdale, and perfectly bluntly, my family was driven off the road by loud student parties and other student problems on the road. There are a bunch of things we need to do in terms of improving bylaw and enforcing bylaw to make a happier community for everybody. And I referred to one with my earlier answer about McMaster. We need to start recognizing that the bad landlords, and it's not all of them, it's only some of them, but they matter. The bad landlords who are in charge of many of the problem properties in Westdale are businesswomen and businessmen like other categories of business people. They need to be regulated accordingly. We need to create a registry of landlords so that we can regulate landlords accordingly. We also need to bring the Landlord-Tenant Tribunal to hold special sessions on campus. I argue that the most effective way to get at bad landlords is to educate students and empower students to exercise their legal rights as tenants to fix some of these.
Aidan. Tony, after you.
Yes. Again, McMaster should build some housing downtown. That would alleviate some of the problem, but more enforcement is required. And again, there should be more communication between the McMaster, the city, and the landlords, trying to achieve common ground so that could work it out, benefiting everybody. But I think we need to have housing downtown and to alleviate the pressure of the Westdale area here.
Sandy, after you.
Well, if I've learned anything in my 30-plus years of working in this community, it's that no one person has all the answers, and I would say I know that tonight because I think that's a great idea, Aidan, you had about the tribunal. And I think that if we are to address this issue, we need to engage everyone. Everyone needs to play their role. As we've said before, McMaster needs to play its appropriate role, the City of Hamilton, and the residents as well, which they are doing well. And I, like you, I'm really perplexed that it has gotten to this point. It's hard to believe that given that we have on the books, bylaws, we have fire code, we have building standards, we have all the things that we need to have proactive enforcement to make this change. So I would say, as your councillor, I would certainly like to reinvestigate the notion of a bylaw that addresses student housing, but certainly proactive enforcement seems to be number one, and engaging all of the residents and all of the people that have a role in this would be the thing that I would certainly address to begin with. Thank you.
Jason, after you.
Thank you. So my eyes were opened very, very wide walking down, door knocking on Arkell Street the other day. I guess it's because all the students want to live on the street named after their favorite band, but it's been devastated by rental housing. So my approach is two-pronged. The first thing I want to do is cross-train the bylaw officers who are currently walking through Westdale, because all they're inspecting right now is parking issues. And if we cross-train them to identify property standards issues as well, we can take the first big step towards alleviating this. The second thing I want to do is create a neighborhood-specific rental housing bylaw for Ainslie Wood and Westdale, model after what they do in Oshawa, which would govern any single-family homes that have been converted into rentals and apply a licensing process and a demerit process for landlords governed by this to clean up a lot of these issues and to really get to the root of the problem.
Ira.
So I'm the only person sitting on this stage who is actually a member of the Community Liaison Committee for a rental housing license. We worked hours on that process. I know it inside and out. I know what mistakes we made. So moving forward, I know what to do right. We can't make it a citywide bylaw. We can't make it a bylaw for an area that surrounds the university. We have to make a bylaw that, first of all, has to get through council, has to get through legal, and then has to be bulletproof, unchallengeable by anybody, including the human rights. So what happened in Oshawa, we can use as a frame of reference, but they had a large developer that was funding most of the legal fees. We don't have that, so we have to be very specific what we do. My association with the Town and Gown Association gives me access to bylaw officials throughout Ontario. I will meet with them as your councillor. We will tailor make a specific bylaw for the Ainslie Wood community, and I will get it done. Thank you.
Okay, our order for the next question: Aidan, Sandy, Tony, Jason, Brian, Ira. Your fifth question: what, in your opinion, is the priority strategic consideration for Ward 1, and then also for the City of Hamilton, and how do your skills and experience contribute to addressing these? Aidan?
I think that we need to build an economy that recognizes two very important things. One, that we need to take care of the most marginalized and vulnerable in our community. And two, that we need to protect our green space and build true ecological sustainability into our economic planning. That is a huge challenge, but we're up to it. What are my qualifications? I started out in corporate law, but then I decided that I wanted to come back to the city that I love, that is my city, to do good work here. So I came back and took my legal aid lawyer job in the downtown. I have significant knowledge and experience of the corporate sector, the financial sector, and the legal sector. I am a very good lawyer. I argue in court. However, I get along with everybody. I think that these are the strengths that we need in the next councillor, so that we can take care of the poor, that is low-income families, and build ecology into our...
Thank you, Aidan. Sandy, after you.
Thank you. So I think that the challenge that's facing us in this neighborhood and in the City of Hamilton is a real division. It's a real division between new growth and old neighborhoods. It's a real division between people that have jobs, good-paying jobs, and those that don't have good-paying jobs. It's a real division between those that have flooded basements and sewers and potholes and those that don't. So I would say that my focus on our neighborhood would be to seek balance in terms of our economic and our social justice for all of our neighbors. My background in community development, I work for the Social Planning Council. My background in engaging, coming up with good solutions for neighbors will serve me well in this. I also have strong financial background, financial management skills. I did work for First Ontario Credit Union. I was the manager of a $2 billion corporation, so I get how money works. I get how finance and investment can be leveraged, not just for return, but can be leveraged for return for people and for our communities. So those two, that balance and those two skills are exactly what I think we need at this time to ensure that we continue to have a fair and just community for all, not just Ward 1, but all of Hamilton.
Tony, after you.
Yes. The city needs to take care of the needy, the poor, the seniors, underprivileged, low-income families that they start struggling to make a living, and also to trying to create an environment so that some of these people that really would like to make a life for themselves will have a chance at taking care of their own needs and work and be in a better spirit and live in better housing and take care of their family. Thank you.
Jason, after you.
So a lot of things that people would like to achieve in Hamilton in terms of economic growth and redevelopment and environmental protection, a lot of these are made more difficult, if not impossible, by a largely dysfunctional City Hall. I think we need to transition the culture at City Hall from one of silos and lack of communication between departments and thinking about themselves to one of thinking like a resident and putting the residents' needs first before every single decision. That's a big part of what I've done the last 5 years at Metrolinx, is help transition the culture from one of operations and just getting people there on time to did you have a good experience on the trip and would you recommend us to a friend? And starting to get people thinking like a customer. If you pull the right levers and if you use the right tools, you can change culture in a fairly short order in a short period of time, and that's the experience from Metrolinx that I would bring to the table in this. Thank you.
Brian, after you.
Hamilton, excuse me, Hamilton's at a cusp. It's just at a great turn for opportunity. And what we need to do is we need to promote economic development, working with the City of Hamilton, not unlike what Jason has said. I have vast experience in whether it was in my sport relationships with Hamilton Bulldogs, whether it was creating something called the Hamilton Sports Hall of Fame, or whether it was working with many small businesses and community organizations in the community that are held up by people who don't have to work to eat. So understanding that there is time commitment that's required, there's a turnaround time on issues that need addressed and jobs that need to be done, and that's what I would do to work with the City of Hamilton in order to train staff to be like that, more influence staff to work to eat. Thank you.
Ira, after you.
Having a strategy is very much about having a vision of where the city is going and where it's been. There's no question development is key to the future of the city. There's no question that having a larger footprint of the university, a primary stakeholder, one of the top 3 largest employers downtown, is part of that vision. But we need to do more than that. We need to think about Aerotropolis. We need to think about the future of our airport. We need to think about making sure that we have food available to everybody. Transportation costs are going through the roof, and it's going to affect how we eat, where we get our food. These are necessities of life, and that we have to make sure that we have those things available to us at low cost. So we need to protect our green spaces, our farming. We think that we need to think about how we move people around the community, investment in the HSR, making the HSR better, and I think we need to work towards a vision, a true vision of where this community is going, and I'd like to help with that. Thank you.
For this next question, the order is going to be Jason, Sandy, Ira, Brian, Tony, and Aidan. Our question is, how do you plan to fight poverty in Hamilton?
So a big
Jason?
part of, thank you, a big part of what I want to do around creating that culture of customer service at City Hall is changing the economic mix of how our city works. If you create a City Hall that works with people and is welcoming and people want to do business with it, you open the door to an awful lot of economic development and an awful lot of jobs and opportunities in the city. I can't count the number of people I've heard from on the campaign trail who either gave up halfway through the process of starting a business or were delayed incredibly through permitting or through license inspections or through all of these things. If we create a City Hall that's open for business and welcoming to people who want to come and invest in our city, whether they're from here or they're from elsewhere, we can create jobs and economic growth for the entire city for everybody from all walks of life. Thank you.
Sandy, after you.
Yes, thank you. I've spent most of my career working with low-income families. I've had the privilege to see how they struggle and to see their valiant effort to overcome some of the missed opportunities that we all take for granted. And so this is near and dear to my heart. There are many ways to address poverty, and people talk about the cost of addressing poverty, but it's absolutely an investment. It's an investment in our community. Pathways to education is a clear way of helping people in poverty. We have first-class educational institutions in Hamilton. There's no reason why people living in poverty in this community shouldn't have access to those. We need to build affordable housing. It's a crime, the number of people that are on social housing waiting lists in this community. When we're looking to build, when we need builders, we need to build jobs in this community, so we need to address affordable housing. And as we invest and as we grow, we need to look at some policies that ensure if we are spending dollars on development and building, that those dollars go to jobs that pay a living and decent wage so that we continue to climb up and not face a downward spiral in our community in terms of poverty and access to income. Thank you.
Ira, after you.
There's no question that poverty is a problem. It's not just a problem in the city. It's not just a problem in Ward 1. It's a problem in the Ainslie Wood community where people are suffering. And I'm talking predominantly about seniors. They're having a tough time. They can't afford the homes they're living anymore. The property taxes are absolutely outrageous. And they're not getting the service for the money. I mean, which is a real problem. I mean, look at Ainslie Wood. There's no services that the city provide, and yet they're paying just as much taxes as people in Westdale. So we have to think about taxes and public services. We have to provide opportunities for people to have better jobs. We need to sit down with the province and say, listen, yes, we're a child of the province, but you need to listen to us. We need to get the wages increased. Minimum wage is way too low. People can't survive on that. And as your councillor, I would do that. I would work with the province and say, we need to do better. Thank you.
Brian, after you.
My entire career has been working with children in need in some way, shape, or form. I started with the Hamilton East Kiwanis Boys and Girls Club, and then moved on to the Hamilton Bulldogs. At the Hamilton Bulldogs, we created something called the Children's Youth Fund, in which we were able to raise funds through private donations, private businesses, in order to donate tickets, merchandise, and give children the opportunity, who couldn't otherwise afford, the opportunity to attend a Bulldogs game and be entertained. That evolved into the Bulldogs Foundation, which then raised funds, again through private donations, in order to feed children, creating a breakfast program which was instituted in numerous schools throughout the community that were in need. I take that practice and I apply that. Healthy businesses can build healthy communities. Working with your private businesses in order to raise funds and to market those opportunities to them and how it can benefit the community. Private industry will listen to that, and we will benefit, and children and those in need will gain as well.
Tony, after you.
Yes. Been involved with the Good Shepherd for many years, doing fundraising for their special programs that they have and accommodating a lot of the needy people, and they invest in people. They really believe that investing in people that they help, and has been working for years. A lot of these people come out of there and they are having their own jobs. They've been assisted too. So it is there's help out there. Also, I've been involved with the City Kids, and so we fundraiser, we help all the kids, all the needy kids there. We need to do more of that, and in the end, I think like investing in people will help the people to be on their own eventually. Thank you.
Aidan, after you.
The number one thing we can do for low-income people in Hamilton is to build an economy that gives them jobs. We need to cut red tape that strangles new business development in the city. We need to make it much quicker and much easier to get commercial licenses for new business projects approved in the city. We need to make a clear, transparent, rules-based process, something we presently lack, for getting commercial rezoning applications through the bureaucracy of City Hall. These are tangible steps that we can take as a municipality to do real things to help our economy grow. That said, we also have to fulfill our obligation to social housing for low-income people who need municipal help in terms of having a dignified, hygienic place to live. We need a mental health strategy to address the disproportionate number of low-income families that struggle with issues of mental illness. We need to recognize that we have a growing urban Aboriginal population in Hamilton.
Thank you, Aidan. Okay, for our next question, the order is going to be Sandy, Jason, Ira, Tony, Aidan, and Brian. And this is your question. Do you support the continuing conversion of one-way streets to two-way streets? If yes, does this include Main and/or King?
Oh, I didn't answer it yet. I got to applaud.
Sandy, after you.
I do, in general, support the conversion. We need to build, it goes back to Jane Jacobs and making healthy, livable streets, and so we need to look at that. But I also know that change is hard, and not everyone loves change, and we have to manage this well. So while not every street needs to go to two-way, I think we need to certainly look at the streets that need to be converted. I think it's really important, as everyone here has talked about, we use the word, complete and safe streets. I don't know anybody in this room, whether you like two-way streets or not, would want a street that isn't safe and isn't complete. So I'm not going to give you a blanket answer. I think that two-way conversions or converting back to two-way plays a key role in the kind of transportation improvements we need. But as also been said before, we need a master plan. We can't go at this ad hoc and a little bit here, a little bit there. We need to have a vision for this. We need to manage the change, and we have to make sure that residents know what's coming on their streets and understand it and also support it. Thank you.
Jason, after you.
Thank you. So the city's transportation master plan is currently being rewritten, and it's important to have a councillor at the table that understands the issues around transportation and can advocate for, like we said, complete streets. I am in favor of conversion of many of our streets into two-way, especially at this point, Queen Street, north of Herkimer. It's a mess, and it needs to be fixed. I'm also in favor of conversion of Main Street and King Street eventually to two-way. I recognize it's a big uphill climb with this council, and convincing folks from the outlying areas of the city that our safety in our neighborhood is as important as their convenience. I'm passionate about the conversion, about making your streets safe and work for everybody throughout the ward, and including adding things like cycling infrastructure and widening sidewalks, especially on Main and King, to make it safer for pedestrians as well. Thank you.
Ira, after you.
There was a time, not too long ago, where I could drive from my house in Westdale to Eastgate Mall and not hit a single stoplight. Flow traffic right from Westdale down to the East End, and it was fantastic. It set this city apart from any other city. My girlfriend lives in Toronto. The traffic there is absolutely horrendous. I don't need to experience Toronto traffic in this city. So I think that we should think about that and think about how we're doing things. I'm not against two-way traffic, but it's something that we really need to think about and need to look at. There are some small streets that I like to see converted to one-way that would reduce traffic flow and make things better. But again, I think we need to do an intense study, but I really, really do like the idea of Hamilton being Hamilton and not like anywhere else. Thank you.
Tony, after you.
Yes, I think we should take a good look at the conversion of the major arteries of Hamilton. I think it could backfire on us. I'm all in favor of the two ways, small business streets or small areas where you can accommodate a little bit better traffic. But if you convert right away so fast on Main and King, what's going to happen to the traffic? Unfortunately or fortunately, we have cars and we have to get to destination from A to B, so we need that. So I think a long-term study, long-term revision, it's needed to that. We wouldn't just chop it off and close, and I think we need to study further on that. Thank you.
Aidan, your 60 seconds begins now.
I think this might be my shortest answer. I believe in a case-by-case approach to our contemplation and possible implementation of two-way streets. James Street in Hamilton gives us good evidence that two-way conversion can do, in many instances, very, very good things. Why is that? Well, it causes people to slow down on the street. It gives opportunities for car drivers to go down the street in a different way, simple as that sounds, and notice things they didn't notice in their earlier hurry in the one-way days. So in certain instances, such as Queen Street, or at least part of Queen Street, I think there is a very important conversation to be had, consulting with the community about creating two-way streets. Not on every street, but there is a lot of opportunity there. Thank you.
Brian, after you.
I agree that it needs, if the conversion of one-way to two-way needs to be part of a strategic plan. And if it's done on a case-by-case basis, then it better be part of that strategic plan so that, and it's communicated to the populace and they have a chance to engage, be engaged, and so that the right decisions can be made. If part of the strategic plan that's being developed is to create traffic congestion to prove a need for the LRT, well then change the streets to two-way streets. Thank you.
Okay, for our next question, the order is going to be Aidan, Sandy, Brian, Jason, Ira, and Tony. I'll note this was a question from the floor, so I haven't been able to double check the numbers in it, but they sound familiar. Current unfunded liabilities are $440 million plus debts and infrastructure costs for a total debt burden of over $2 billion. If you are elected, how would you cut expenditures? Aidan, after you.
One key area where we can create efficiencies in this city is by eliminating wasteful civil litigations. The amount of money, and it was colossal, around $500 million, that we spent litigating the Red Hoe Creek Expressway was not litigation money well spent. We need to work a lot more closely with the legal team that advises City Council as a council to make sure that we are only undertaking civil litigations if they are likely winners. Also, we need to be contemplating civil litigations that we can actually win and go after those. That would be the number one area I would look to for starters for creating greater efficiencies. In any organization, there is room for efficiencies. And when I'm councillor, I intend to go through our budget with a fine-tooth comb to find areas that we can cut without damaging vulnerable populations and our community so that we can find the money to do the things we need to do. Thank you.
Sandy, after you.
Thank you. I like to believe that most of us in the room understand that paying taxes is a privilege in some regard, and that those taxes go to building the kind of communities that we want. I also know that people in this community want to ensure that their hard-earned tax dollars are being put to good use and be putting to good use for things that are important to them. I honestly can't tell you if I know that there's waste at City Hall. I haven't had the privilege of looking at the books. I would like to believe that our elected officials are doing the best they can to ensure that they themselves are looking after our hard-earned dollars. They've managed to keep our tax increases to a minimum. I'm not saying that there isn't waste there, but at the same time, we have expenses that we need to look at. In addition to this, we have approaching $1 billion deficit in our infrastructure. And so I would ask people in this room, is that where we want to cut spending? We know that we need to invest in our sewers and our waterways and our combined sewer overflows. And so while we do want to ensure that our tax dollars are respected and are well spent, I think we need to understand that we have a lot of costs, we have a lot of infrastructure to build and to maintain, and that bill is coming due one way or another.
Brian, after you.
I've had the experience of working in the city of Hamilton, and I know that in certain cases, money is spent because the budget's there. If you don't spend it, you lose it. So there are great opportunities for efficiencies to be made, and monies to be saved, and taxes to be lowered. And also, it's a multi-pronged approach. Bring in more business to the city, help businesses that exist here survive, create jobs, lower taxes. Thank you.
Jason, after you.
Thank you. So a big part of the way I would cut expenditures and increase efficiency at City Hall is just getting different departments to talk to each other. How many of you saw what happened on King Street a little while ago when they repaved the entire street in Westdale, and then a couple of months later it came and ripped up huge chunks of it to replace water lines? Why are these departments not talking to one another? If we open this up to communication and encourage and demand and require communication between different departments, we can cut down on the wasteful redoing of work that seems to occur on a regular basis at City Hall. I know part of what they're doing, thank you, part of what they're doing now in Toronto is they are, every time they rip up a road or plan a major infrastructure project, they require every department affected by that change to sit down in a room together and hash out what their plan is. This is the type of experience I've had at Metrolinx, guiding these discussions and bringing people together for these conversations, and that's what I'll do at City Hall.
Ira, after you.
Every once in a while, you'll pick up a Spectator, and you'll see an article on the front page that says, hey, look, they're wasting money at City Hall. Whether it's, crews taking naps and seeing vehicles parked for hours at the golf course. These are costs that we're paying for, and we have to fix that. There's no question there's waste. There's no question that we can do things better. I attended several meetings with the Hamilton Civic League and watched in shock and awe, looking at charts of the budget going from a small percent. If I had the charts here, you see a small budget here to a huge budget here. Where is all the money going? It's going to wages. It's going to, like Aidan said, ridiculous law cases that we have to take care of. But we have to maintain our own city corporation, and we have to do that with a best business case. And that's not being done. So we have to do better. We have to make sure that we're not spending money frivolously. Seeing, again, like Jason said, patchwork. Do it right the first time.
Thank you,
talk
Ira.
to each other.
Thank you. Tony, after you.
Yes. First of all, council must respect the taxpayer of Hamilton by no wasting their tax dollars on projects that they're not needed. The city must show more discipline for municipal spending and deliver more for less. Bring more business to Hamilton, accommodate the new business coming in. Before we're losing to the other communities, we make sure that we welcome it with open arms. The more business, the more tax dollar coming in, the more residential tax go low. So that's the way I feel. And I hope I can work very hard if I'm a councillor toward that. That's one of my goals. Thank you.
For this next question, the order will be Brian, Ira, Sandy, Aidan, Tony, and Jason. And here's your question. It is a general concern that after debate, council will make a decision, but instead of supporting the decision with one voice, other council members continue the debate. Where do each of you stand on this issue? Brian, after you.
Well, I can speak to my own ability to communicate. I've chaired a number of committees. I participate on a number of committees. I've worked in rooms like that before. That when the team makes a decision, they have to stick to that decision. You have to communicate, you have to share your issues, and you have to be able to come out of the room collectively if you're voting on an issue where the majority rules. So in the past, we've seen it repeatedly. I'm the type of person and I'm the type of professional that not only gets along, but shares candidly, shares straightforward with people, and communicates very well. And I expect that from the fellow councillors if I'm elected. Thank you.
Ira, after you.
I think part of the problem, certainly from what I've experienced, is that something will come along that sounds great, and everybody says, yeah, let's do that. And then, and that's what happens. They say, yes, let's do that. And then they start thinking about it, and then they start figuring who's going to pay for this, and all of a sudden opinions start to change. So I think what we need to do as councillors and moving forward is to make sure that we have all the pertinent information before we make the big decisions. Millions and millions of dollars is not something that you just say, hey, it sounds great, let's do it. We need to think about making sure that we have all the information, and then those things will stop. Thank you.
Sandy, after you.
Thank you. Well, I often call myself a governance nerd. I take governance very seriously. I'm actually a graduate, a chartered director from DeGroote School of Business, and I have served as the chair of the board for a $2.5 billion credit union. And so I do have high experience in governance. And what I've learned, especially being the chair of the board, is that in order to have highly effective meetings and highly effective functioning, you need to have a clear and compelling vision. And that's generally the role of a chair, and in this case it would be a mayor. So I certainly hope that we will elect a mayor in this term that will provide us with that clear and compelling vision and with leadership. And so that we do as Brian, that we have the debate, the intense dialogue, we hash it out, we come to a solid decision, and then we leave it on the ice. I can use a sports analogy as well. But certainly, in order to have highly effective meetings of our councillors and to have an effective running of the city, we need to ensure that we're all wanting the same kind of things for our city, that we have a vision that is inspiring and that in some ways keeps all of the city councils singing off of the same song sheet. And so I hope to see that with our new council and our new...
Aidan, after you.
I believe in unity, but I do not believe in unity at any cost. Ideally, all of council can agree on important matters. However, as a general matter of principle, if council takes a decision that I think is bad, whether it's bad for the economy or bad for human rights or bad for my neighborhood, I'm not going to be a trained seal clapping and supporting it, and I'm sure my opponents wouldn't be either. I think that we need to have a restoration of civility within our council. We can have passionate debate and passionate disagreement and yet respect one another. An extremely important principle that we need to bring back to our council is the following. Acknowledge the good in what your opponent is saying. That has to be the starting point for any conversation. And then when you disagree with your opponent, whether it's in the context of city council or whether it's in the context of hashing out our very local disagreements as neighborhood associations and as a ward, when we start our disagreements by acknowledging all the good and all of the integrity in our opponents.
Thank you. I do feel bad about cutting people off, just so everybody knows. All right, maybe I don't, but... It means I get to press buttons, and I'm an engineer, so... Tony, after you.
Yes. If I'm elected, I would like to bring more respect at City Council. Unfortunately, there's no team effort right now. The decision making, it's not on behalf of the taxpayer of Hamilton. It's just a wastage. Sometimes they do decision on one-to-one. They don't think of the taxpayer. Long-term vision decision is needed at City Hall, and I can help with that. Thank you.
Jason, after you.
Thank you. So I think one thing we desperately need on council is a lot more decorum. I don't know if anybody watched the live feed of the last council meeting and saw all of the off-microphone chatter that Joey Coleman's mic was picking up on his live feed, but it was quite disrespectful. To say nothing of projectile writing instruments in the past. But I think we need to restore a lot of decorum to council, and I plan to be a big part of that. Second to the point that was raised earlier is that part of the challenge with council making good decisions and sticking to them is the massive amounts of information involved. Again, back to you, Joy, but I've seen the stacks of agendas that are required to be read, and a big part of the problem is that councillors often only get those agendas 48 hours in advance. That needs to change. There needs to be adequate time to digest that information. And the final thing is, I'm only going to support motions or decisions made by council that are in the best interest of my ward. If somebody wants to raise the speed limit on Main to 90 kilometers an hour, I'm not getting behind that. So I'm here to represent the people of Ward 1 and the citizens of Ward 1. And
Thank
that's
you,
what I
Jason.
intend to do. Thank you.
Briefly, before I start the next question, if everybody could take 15 seconds, make sure your cell phone is muted or turned off. I won't get angry if you realize that you left it on. I just want to make sure we have a chance to do that. While you're muting your cell phones, the order for the next question is going to be Jason, Ira, Sandy, Aidan, Brian, and Tony. This one is a little bit of a mouthful. Local improvement charges, or LICs, are presently used by the City of Hamilton to allow the costs of lead pipe replacement to be financed by the homeowner through their property tax bill. In this way, rather than a large upfront cost, payments are spread out over time. Toronto and Halifax are presently undertaking pilot projects allowing the same mechanism to be used for energy efficiency retrofits and solar hot water heating. With Hamilton's aging housing stock, this mechanism could allow many homeowners who might otherwise not have the financial means to improve their home's energy efficiency. Would you support considering a similar expansion of the LIC program in Hamilton to include energy efficient retrofits? Jason, after you.
Yes, I would. I believe the local improvement charge system works very, very effectively for helping people to upgrade the infrastructure in their house without bearing a huge amount of cost up front. We know we need to make our homes more efficient. We know that the climate is changing, and we can be a part of reducing that or mitigating that. And a big part of that is ensuring that our homes are more environmentally efficient, use resources more wisely. So I would definitely be in support of using local improvement charges to improve the environmental and the efficiency of homes.
Ira, after you.
I think that it's certainly a value to make that investment. However, my concern and what I would want to be sure of is that when we're contracting the work out, we're using the right contractor to do the job, not necessarily the cheapest. And that's something that we've experienced in the city before. So I would want the job to be done right the first time, and that would be the end of it. And that's the only way I would support it. Thank you.
Sandy, after you.
So those LICs are also a form of social financing. This is precisely my background. I have a really strong background in looking at ways we can take money, investment to leverage for community and social good. So for example, we create a microloan program that does just that. It takes dollars and it leverages for community good. I've had the opportunity to work with Van City Credit Union and the City of Vancouver, who also have done precisely this with the local improvement charges. And it's not just for energy retrofits, it's also to ensure that seniors have the ability to stay in their homes. We can allow them to do this to make sure that they have the sort of safety devices and the opportunity to remain in their home when they outgrow their stairs, for example. And so the City of Hamilton has a great opportunity. We have millions of dollars invested in other opportunities, millions of dollars on the sideline, and we can leverage this to our benefit. We can absolutely create a local improvement charge. We can create an impact investment strategy. All of these things are entirely possible. You just need a councillor that has experience with leveraging dollars and in using finances for social good.
Aidan, after you.
Replacing our lead pipe and creating environmentally sustainable energy houses are great opportunities for industry and the private sector in Hamilton. It's a good example of how the municipality can work to create sustainable green businesses and jobs in the city. My two nieces on Beulah and my brother and my sister-in-law had to drink from bottled water for a period of time that to me was far too long, and I won't go into the length of time, precisely because of confusion around the rules for lead pipe and their difficulties in replacing the lead pipe that feeds the water into their kitchen, into their home. That's unacceptable. As a city, we need to educate people about the rules and about the process for replacing lead pipe. It's a basic issue for protecting children and people of all ages, and I'm all for it.
Brian, after you.
I'm definitely for it, and that concept of environmental improvement as well as saving the homeowner money. My background, too, is in marketing and communications. As I've mentioned, I've worked for a couple of different companies creating brand awareness. Greenport Environmental, which is a company that, a recycling company that works out of Georgetown that sells its services and its ingenious science to municipalities. I'm not contracted with them anymore, so I get to say that. As well as Third Planet Energy, a company that markets its services to commercial uses, residential as well. There's great opportunities there. There's some great people to work with there in the area and throughout Canada and the United States. But to be able to improve the bottom line for people's budgets is number one. Thank you.
Tony, after you.
Yes, all in favor. I think we should go ahead with the program. We're going to benefit of it. In the long run, also will help to creating new jobs in the city, and we do need jobs in the city. So I think I'm in favor of it. Thank you.
Okay, our order for the next question is going to be Ira, Sandy, Brian, Aidan, Tony, and Jason. And your question is this. Ward 1 has been described as underserviced for the coming expansion in the number of seniors and retirees in Hamilton. If you are elected, what are you willing to do to help meet the health, social, and activity needs of seniors? Ira, after you.
So, again, I've been very involved with a group called the West Hamilton Seniors who have been focused on specifically these issues, trying to find places for seniors to go and trying to get the right programming. There is nowhere in Ward 1, no center for seniors to go to that's specifically designed just for seniors. So previously, when we were talking about the Prince Philip site, I thought that would be a great opportunity to build a center of excellence for seniors and make it available to the entire community. And again, I think whoever ends up bidding for that property, I think there's an opportunity to sit down with them and talk about that kind of a package, whether it's a full service rec type of center or something specifically for seniors. There's no question we need it, and I would advocate strongly for it. Thank you.
Sandy, after you.
Thank you. There's a wonderful organization called 880, and they say that if you design communities that are appealing for 8-year-olds and 80-year-olds, you have a great community. And so I think that's what we should aspire to here in Hamilton. We've done great work. That we've just had a report that was presented and approved at the City Council on creating an age-friendly community, and we've done some great work, but we still have ways to go. We are, as we know, we're going to have this silver tsunami, and we're a little bit flat-footed in terms of this. So it's not just recreational facilities, which I think are hugely important, but it's appropriate housing. We need to find appropriate housing for seniors that want to stay in their communities. We also need to look at transportation. Our investment in transportation and modern transportation needs to be done with seniors in mind in this community. So our seniors also need to be able to afford to stay in their homes. We need to look at the tax base. We need to look at those taxes being affordable neighbors, so they're not driven out of their homes because of taxes, and if they choose to stay in their homes, are able to do so. Thank you.
Brian, after you.
Promoting the interest of a recreation center for all ages, including seniors, is obviously, it's almost a no-brainer, and that's what's needed in the west end of the city. And transportation is also a key component. I actually work for a company, one of my clients is Veterans Transportation. Tomorrow morning at 6:30 is my first pickup. They're short-staffed, so I'm actually driving the vehicle for Veterans Transportation, focusing in on that service. And I know that there's a great need to upgrade it, not just through public transit, but through partnering with private industry as well. And there's a great, I'm going to be doing it, and I see it on a regular basis when I have to fill in for the company when they're short. It's a combination of creating and promoting the building of a seniors recreation complex, as well as creating a method of mobility for them to get them out of their homes to the location is necessary.
Aidan, after you.
Some of the most inspiring and engaged people that I know are senior citizens. I think that we have to acknowledge the incredible diversity that we have among senior citizens. We have those who are in top-notch physical health, who have wealth and all kinds of opportunities and energy to be full members of the community. However, unfortunately, we also have senior citizens who are marginalized in all kinds of ways, often because of income, often because of disability. We need broader sidewalks on many streets in our community so that seniors don't feel afraid walking on their own streets. We do need to have subsidized housing for low-income seniors in particular. We need to make sure that no senior citizen who needs a darts ride to get somewhere, to get anywhere, is without a darts ride. I've door knocked now on every door in the ward, and some of the most moving stories I've heard.
Thank you, Aidan. Tony, after you.
Yes, I think we can make more use of the facilities that we already have, the recreation center for the seniors, and extend hours, the libraries, so the senior can go in there and do some socialize. And also, DART transportation is a big issue with the seniors and people who are disabled. I was one of them. I used the facilities for a little while. I have a hip replacement, and you wait for hours and hours sometimes. It's terrible. So I think that's a very important issue that I think we should carry on at City Council there in the future and make sure that it is a better service. I mean, it's an extent, well, 1 hour, 2 hours, you wait outside of a hospital and everything. It's terrible. So I think we should prove that. Thank you.
Jason, after you.
Thank you. So I've been proud to sit on the Participatory Budget Advisory Committee for the last couple of years. And in that time, at your request, we have set aside a couple $100,000 for seniors' recreational opportunities here in the ward. I think that would be a great way to leverage on top of the money that's already been set aside for the Prince Philip School purchase, a really solid recreational, all-ages recreational center in Ainslie Wood that would meet the needs of seniors as well as all age groups. I'm also concerned about the renovations that were supposed to happen at Dalewood Rec Center. There was supposed to be $14 million set aside for that, and it appears to have gone up in smoke. So first thing I intend to do is find out what happens to that money. Finally, we need to engineer our streets for everyone. It's been said a few times, but ensuring that pedestrians have good access and it's safe to walk on our streets and not be worried about being mowed down by a car is important. And finally, I've heard from so many seniors across the ward that as they're getting ready to downsize and move out of their homes, they have nowhere to go. We need to ensure that development happens in the ward that provides a place for seniors to move into, whether it's condominiums or facilities like that where they can go and move into. Thank you.
All right, it looks like we have time for 2 more questions, the one I'm going to ask now, and then the final question of the night, which will allow follow-ups. So this question is the same format as we've been doing. The order will be Tony, Aidan, Jason, Sandy, Ira, and Brian. The question is, do you have a plan for retaining young McMaster, Mohawk, and Redeemer grads in Hamilton? Tony, after you.
Yes. I think we do have to have a plan. I don't have a plan at the moment, but I think there's something very futuristic that we have to do the city level and trying to keep our youth in Hamilton. After they finish school, they have to go outside the boundaries, unfortunately, and trying to create them some jobs and attract them like to stay in our own city here. Thank you.
Aidan, after you.
I'm deeply grateful that this question names Mohawk and Redeemer. Too often in our conversation about education and student policy in Hamilton, we overlook the 2 other great post-secondary institutions of higher learning that we do have in this region. I think that doing more to bring Mohawk and McMaster and Redeemer, all 3, into the downtown would be a great way to hook students on Hamilton and incentivize them to stay. I believe that the municipality needs to give a lot more grant money to the arts sector. That is one thing we can do to build a downtown that becomes even cooler than it already is and even more attractive to students. And let us be clear, it would be an extremely good thing for our economy to incentivize students to stay. Thank you.
Jason, after you.
Thank you. So the two things I think we need to do are, one, create a city where young people want to flock to live. That includes continuing to leverage the arts sector in Hamilton, which is growing and vibrant. And I've been very proud to be part of the literary arts sector in Hamilton for a number of years now, as my wife brought the publishing company here. We also need to ensure that our transit is effective and people can move around the street. One thing young people consistently identify is about the city they want to live in is they don't want to need to own a car. I think LRT is a big part of that. Secondly, we need to attract employers to our city that are, by cutting red tape and by making the city easier to deal with in terms of getting business licenses and getting those processes in place. So cutting red tape at City Hall is a huge part of attracting the employers we need to keep those young people and have somewhere for them to go when they graduate.
Sandy, after you.
Well, I think these are all great ideas. I've mentioned before the arts sector. I think that really is what will attract young people. But we really need to win their hearts and minds. And we really need to understand what young graduates, young professionals want as they build their life and their career. And more than anything, they need to know, as we mentioned, that we have a modern city, we have housing that's available and attractive to them, and that we have modern transportation. But I think what's lacking in attracting students to have them stay here is that they really don't know what Hamilton's all about. And we have done, as community leaders, not a great job of ensuring that we are making those connections. We need to have more collaborative tables and collaborative bodies that talk to the education institutions that are graduating these professionals with these skills to make connections to the burgeoning economy, to make sure that we're making those connections. Because I know, for example, with nurses, we graduate nurses, but they end up finding employment in other communities. So as community leaders, I think it is our job to make sure that we're engaged, that we are looking to retain those young students, and we start with hearts and minds, but we also make sure that we're looking at their pocketbook as well.
Thank you, Sandy. Ira, after you.
There's no question there's opportunities here. So it's interesting when you think about what's going on in our community. When people leave university, usually they're couples already, they've met their significant other, and they're thinking about moving to a community and building a family, and the first thing you look for is a school. And we're losing them. So we need to make sure that we're rescuing our schools and we're maintaining them, because they're the foundation. They are the anchor of a community. So that's the first step. The next step is to make sure that we're promoting this incredible city to the students that, for the most part, never really leave the areas where they are. Students around Mohawk may be doing a little bit more traveling, but I had an interview this morning with a reporter from the Silhouette, and he agreed. For the most part, McMaster University students don't leave the area. And it's such a great city. We have Dundurn Castle. We have, we're the waterfall capital of North America. We have the War Heritage Museum.
Thank you, Ira. I'll stop you at the waterfall.
We have
Thank you. Brian, after you.
As I've mentioned, my background's in marketing and communications, and I just believe that there's an opportunity here for a public-private marketing plan geared specifically for student retention. That not only we do a great job now marketing Hamilton outside of the community, but we don't communicate well enough internally to our own residents as well as the students living temporarily on campus. We need to educate them as to the jobs that are available, the arts and the history of arts in our community, such as music in our history, great bands that came out of Hamilton, such as, Teenage Head, Junk House, Harlem Pepper, more Arkells. But bringing in that splash, that flavor, and show students living at each of the schools that there's housing opportunities, there's job opportunities, there's arts opportunities, and there's opportunities here to raise a family healthy.
Okay, for the final question of the night, the order is going to be Brian, Sandy, Tony, Jason, Ira, and Aidan. And a reminder, this will follow the format of the first question of the night, 60 seconds each, go through again, 30 seconds each for the follow-up. After that, we'll have closing remarks, and then everybody gets to go home. So, our final question of the night. Name one thing Brian McHattie was supportive of that you agree with, and one thing that he did or failed to do that you disagree with. Yep, yeah, I'll repeat the question. Name one thing Brian McHattie was supportive of that you agree with, and one thing that he did or failed to do that you disagree with.
He's in the back row.
After you, Brian.
Thanks very much.
Don't put him on the spot.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I know Brian would like to take one development back, and I think he's talked about that before. I think when you're looking at development in the city, you do have to be careful with it, but you do have to be progressive, but follow the lead of your constituents as well. So I know that was one. I think what Brian's done very well is communicate, though, and I think I think the supporters of Brian will attest to that, and I think that even those who are opposed to some of his dealings will attest to the fact that he did communicate with the residents, and he was seen as very insightful and bright, and I think that's to be respected as well.
Sandy, after you.
Okay, well, I do have the utmost admiration for Councillor McHattie. I think that he was a visionary. I think he's driven this ward to where it is today. I think though he may have done things that we don't agree with, you can't please everyone. And he took a stand on issues and he made change, and not everybody likes change. And so I would like to say that if any of the candidates before you have the same kind of courage that he had, you'd be well served. The thing that I do disagree with Brian doing is not staying on as city councillor. And how's that for a political answer? Thank you.
Okay, Tony, after you.
Okay. I respect Brian. We're friends. But one bad thing, he didn't know to drive on a red hill. And a little bit on the businesses, but it's changing. So I hope he's more progressive toward that. So thank you.
Jason, after you.
Thank you. So the one thing that he did that I've been the most involved with and I'm most impressed by was bringing participatory budgeting to Hamilton, specifically to Ward 1. I was involved in that process back before it is even conceived during the original public info centers around area rating. The first year it happened, I submitted an idea and got approved. The crosswalk on Main and Pearl, and then I've sat on the committee the last 2 years. It's been an incredible experience to engage with citizens and find out from people what your priorities are here in the ward and how important each of those things are to you. There's nothing like it. In terms of things that didn't go so well, I would echo Brian's remark. The development at Dundurn and Aberdeen, I think I think everyone agrees is pretty much a mess, and that's a big part of the reason why ensuring good development is such a huge focus of my campaign, because you only get one chance to build buildings.
Ira, after you.
In working with Brian for the last 10 years, I can tell you that I consider him a close friend. I've been to his home, and I think he's had a lot of great successes in the community. And it's more about the person. I think his availability to the community associations and to his constituents is a benchmark that I think any councillor would find hard to follow. And that certainly would be my personal objective to do that. The one failure I really have a problem with was the rental housing license bylaw. I was on the committee, and there was an opportunity to really seize an opportunity there. So we're not here back again talking about the same thing. And for me personally, that was something that I really had an issue. Thank you.
Aidan, after you.
The Dundurn-Aberdeen development needed to have more community consultation around it. The Frankie Venom statue issue needed to have more community consultation around it. We need to praise Brian for starting the Participatory Budget Committee. At the same time, and I know that Brian would admit this, there are some significant imperfections in the Participatory Budget Committee. I was very proud to be involved with the Participatory Budget Advisory Committee this year and all of its subcommittees, and next year we need to work on including even more people in even deeper ways. I want to end with the good. Brian brought environmentalism to the table in this city. Brian was one of our greatest spokespeople for Eco Park, the beautiful visionary project that is now in place to bring together the 6 governmental stakeholders who own and manage the waters and lands on the west side of Lake Ontario. Long live Eco Park, let us build it.
Thank you, Aidan. And as stated, that was the last question, so we'll now continue with 30-second follow-up in the same order. Brian, after you.
Just specific to that question?
Yes, you have the closing statement afterwards, so
Okay.
however you'd like to take
sorry,
30
okay,
seconds.
I wasn't sure. I'll tell you, I think Brian has such a sincere passion for the community, and I think he did a good thing and a bad thing all in one move with the statue for my good friend Frank. I think the spirit of the idea of recognizing the arts in such a way that could inspire youth it was fantastic. The spirit behind it, the methodology maybe should have been completed in a different way. With community consultation and clarity. But I think in one move, it represents
Brian.
both
That's
sides.
30 seconds. Sandy, your 30 seconds.
Well, it is Brian's show tonight, isn't it? So I would say that his integrity and his ability to learn from his mistakes are inspirational. To the development at Aberdeen and Dundurn is a prime example. I was on the Community Liaison Committee as part of that, and I was sorely disappointed, spending many, many nights on that committee, and that was a disappointment. But Brian's ability to stand up, say he made mistakes, and learn from that is an inspiration, and I hope I could be half the councillor that he has been for us in Ward 1.
Tony, after you.
I wish Brian good luck on his mayor campaign, and that's all I can say. He's a good man.
Jason?
Just want to expand a bit on the participatory budget process. We recognize as a committee that there are significant parts of the community that we're not reaching, and we have a plan in place to continue that outreach and expand on that outreach. Looping the comment back to Brian, the one thing Brian did exceedingly well was he was very, very hands-off with his committee. He trusted his committee members that they would represent the public, represent their communities, and do the right thing, and he largely left our decisions up to us throughout the entire process. That's the kind of empowering, community-building leader that I intend to be.
Hear, hear.
Ira, after you.
Again, I want to focus very much on the positive things that Brian's done for this community over the 10 years that I've been working closely with him. Certainly, one of my favorite things is the dog park over at Hill Street, and I was instrumental in the creation of that park with Brian, and it's been rewarding for me personally because I've met so many people through that. In addition to that, I think just his personality and bringing positivity and lending a certain level of negotiation to the council has helped.
Thank you. And Aidan, after you.
Brian was a progressive, and the next councillor for Ward 1 also needs to be a progressive. Brian is a great empowerer of people of all ages, including youth. I think that our next Ward 1 councillor needs to have a passion and needs to have deep roots in the community and needs to have an ability to get along with all people and exercise his or her strengths to the max. I'd like to thank all of my opponents for being people worthy of being councillors, and I'd like to thank Brian for his tremendous service.
And that brings us to a close of the question period of the evening. And on a personal note, if our next councillor is even a third as good as Brian is, we will be incredibly lucky. I think Brian is one of the best things to ever happen to this ward. And so, to end the night, each candidate is going to have a 1-minute closing statement. We're going to begin with Ira, work our way down. Please let me introduce you each time again as I have, so I can get the mute buttons unmuted. Ira, after you.
Again, when I started this process, it was about a personal commitment to understand the streets and the homes of the ward. And again, visiting over 11,000 doors it's been a unique experience, one that I will treasure forever, and it's just been a wonderful adventure for me. Again, I think we live in a time of consequences where every action and every decision we make is of utmost importance. And we live in an information overflowing with information, and we need experience and wisdom to move forward. And I believe that I possess the skills, the context, the understanding of this community to lead this ward to the future with a great vision. And I hope for your support come October 27th. Thank you.
Brian, after you.
I'd first like to thank all those who were responsible for putting this evening together. It was so well organized. The communication was fantastic. Apparently there's snacks back there too I'm looking forward to. I think at this point, Ward 1 needs a leader that has experience and is a tireless, passionate worker. Somebody who can make a difference in a boardroom, somebody who can make a difference and stand up for you, and stand up for all of these wonderful, great ideas that come from these other wonderful leaders that are up front today, and communicate your needs, communicate your wants, and make sure that what you need to get done gets done, as well as looking after the needs of the entire community. And I think I'm that type of leader. I think I have that experience, I have that work experience, and I have that community experience, and I'm tireless and I like working 17-hour days. Thank you.
Sandy, after you.
Well, I too would like to thank everyone for being here tonight. I also want to thank the committee for providing me with a tablecloth earlier and taking it away. I did decide to wear pants just in case, so I do appreciate your consideration. But I don't envy you your job here. You've heard all these great ideas from my fellow candidates. We have, all of us, great ideas. We all have passion. It's so evident. We wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be standing for public office if we didn't care about our community. And we're all have been dedicated volunteers. And so how do you make this decision? And you've been hearing the word a lot, the word about experience. You've been hearing the word leadership. And I, just like the rest of the candidates, feel that I'm the one that has the best leadership experience. I really invite you to take a look at my record. I've worked in this community for 30 years. I've held senior leadership positions for large organizations, and I will continue to work in this community whether I'm elected as your councillor or not. I do have the passion and I do have the commitment for this community, and I do have the ability to take Ward 1 to the next level. And I want to be, just like Brian McHattie is, a councillor that you can be proud of. I also would like all of us to have a ward that we...
Aidan, after you.
The slogan we've been using in this campaign, and many of you know it, is Ward 1 for everyone. It means bringing the principle of equality and bringing the principle of respect and putting those at the center of our urban planning. We need a ward that respects the environment. We need a ward that fights for sound economic management throughout the city. We do need to do all kinds of things for our neighborhoods, the higher income neighborhoods, the middle income neighborhoods, and the lower income neighborhoods in Ward 1. At the same time, Ward 1, whoever the next councillor is, has to be a leader for the whole of the Hamilton region. We are a privileged ward, and we have to use our many-fold blessings to fight for a Hamilton in which no one is left behind. That's the vision that I'm going to bring to City Council, and I thank you so much for your consideration.
Jason, after you.
Thanks. A vote for me is a vote for a pragmatic, thoughtful leader who does his homework and has a solid track record of work in this community. I've got a practical, actionable plan to make Ward 1 better, a better place to live, work, raise a family, or go about your daily lives. Everyone in this campaign has some really, really great ideas. I have a concrete plan. Whether it's making our streets safer or easier to move around, whether it's creating an effective culture at City Hall, or whether it's helping to maintain the physical integrity of our neighborhoods. I'd encourage you to check it out at jasonallen.ca and give me your serious consideration on October 27th. Thank you.
And Tony, after you.
Thank you. Residents of Ward 1, you have a decision to make on October 27 that will impact on the future of the ward for the next 4 years. I have explained my reasons for running and set out some of the issues in this ward that are of concern to you. I'm prepared to work full-time for the full term of office for all the residents of Ward 1. I will respond to all requests for help and will work for you and with you to find solutions to the difficulties facing us. I will always work in your best interest in an open and straightforward manner. With your support, I will strive to maximize the full potential that Ward 1 has to offer. By working together with a proactive City Council, we can return Hamilton to its rightful position as an ambitious city. Thank you. It will be an honor to serve you as a councillor for Ward 1.
Okay, well, that is pretty much it. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I know 2 hours in these chairs is not the most comfortable experience we can imagine. A few final notes. A reminder that we will be sending these questions to the candidates in the next few days, so they have an opportunity to go into further detail on their websites or any other venue should they choose to. Joey Coleman has been kind enough to stream the event live tonight, and I believe... And I believe the archive will be available on your website later on. Excellent. Already available. That's what I like to hear. The debate is now done. If you are not a member of Ainslie Wood or Westdale, you're free to go. If you are a member of the Ainslie Wood or Westdale, specifically a member of the AWWCA, in 15 minutes, our AGM starts. Everyone else is free to get out of here. If you haven't registered yet at the back and you are a member of the AWWCA, please do that. And before you all walk away, can I get one final round of applause for these amazing candidates? I think they did a fantastic job. They were incredibly cordial. This is exactly how I wanted it to go.